short int, we have big int, right? Now, do you know what is the difference between, let's say, a varchar and a text data type? You know, there is a data type known as text in SQL also. Do you know what? Like, you can give a thumbs up or give a thumbs down. That's fine. Okay, so basically you have two types of string. Like we have a text, we have a varchar. So there is a very minute difference because they are basically used to store the textual characters, but varchar supports indexing, whereas your text doesn't support indexing as such, right? If you want to make an index, right, make a column indexable, then you have to specify it as varchar if it is stores some alphanumerical data. Otherwise, you can just simply name it as text, right? So these are the basic differences between varchar and text. Let me just share a YouTube video link with you to support this argument so that you can view this, right? Just give me a second. Okay, so just give me a minute.
Relational databases have
I'm sharing this YouTube video link. I hope you can see that, right? I keep on studying stuff, right? So this also was not known to me much after like before an year or before like year or so, right? When I was learning about it, when I was refreshing my concepts. So when I learn, I just tend to share it with you guys, right? So try to watch this video. This is not very much bigger video, just 15 to 20 minutes, I guess. It will be like you will get an high level idea for this, right? So it is very beneficial video, right? Okay, we have data types in SQL. Then we have some types of data constraints, right? Now, what are data constraints? They are specific rules which we define in our SQL tables, right? So that we can limit the insertion of data to particular standards, right? So what are the kind of data constraints we have right now? We have a kind of non-null constraint, right? We have non-null constraint, or we have, let's say, non-empty, right? That we can like will learn about them in the subsequent slides. Basically, non-null, right? Or just let me know, I have also forgotten it. Okay, basically non-null, primary key, foreign key, these are basically data constraints only, right? Now, candidate key, right? Now, mostly when you go to the interviews for the mass recruiting companies, right, or even some small scale companies also, they usually ask about what is the difference between candidate key and a primary key, right? They usually ask this question. Whenever you get this question, right, you have the definition at your screen, right? What is a candidate key? These are the minimal set of k attributes such that no two tuples are allowed to be equivalent on all the attributes, right? That is minimum set of attributes which uniquely identify a row. Okay, that's known as candidate key, minimal set of attributes. For example, if I am taking, let's say I am taking a student table, right? I am taking a student table. Now, if I'm taking student name, let's say student age, student address, right? Now, if I take these three, if I take these three combinedly, like ignoring the brothers and sister or twins, ignoring those special scenarios, if I take these three columns together, my student will always be unique, right? Because no student will have a same address, you know that, right? Even if they have a same address, let's say they all belong to uh, let's say street number 5, they obviously have a very rare chance of getting their name same or age same, right? So these three combinations can uniquely identify my student, right? Now, candidate keys are a minimal set of key attributes. So we can also specify student ID, right? Student ID. So basically, what is primary key? Every candidate key chooses a leader among them, right? Every candidate key chooses a leader among them to be act as a primary key. Always know that, right? A primary key is nothing, it is just a like volunteer from the group of candidate keys. Usually we, what do we make candidate primary key as? That is student IDs. We usually use IDs because there is a specific constraint which are given to us, right, in the database. But what is the high level view of the primary key? That it is a volunteer of the candidate keys, right? We don't need to use these like columns in the groupism, right? We can just use a primary key and we know that this will be unique. Just give me a minute. I am getting a call from the placement manager. Okay. Sorry for the disturbance. Right. Now let's know about what is primary key. Right. Primary key is a special relational database field, right? Uniquely identify a table record, right? Now it has two properties or it has two main features, right? Now it must contain a unique value for each row of data, right? When you are specifying a primary key, your node, your primary key will always be unique. Just remember that, right? Because it will ensure that your no two records are same. That is why it is known as primary key, because it is your primary go-to attribute to uniquely identify a record. It cannot contain null values because we cannot compare values or null values, right? We cannot compare one non-null value to another non-null value, right? So we need some comparison kind of logic that why this table is or why this tuple is unique, right? So it cannot contain null value. Let's say even if it contains null value, what will happen, right? Let's have an example for it. So I have prepared some tables for you. Wait a second. What? Oh gosh, spelling mistake. Okay, so let's say I'm using use school, right? Now I hope my screen is visible, right? So show tables, right? We have this table. Now let's say describe course. Okay, so we have a course table. Now if I select star from course, right? If I select star from course, now if you see my this ID, right? ID column. If when I'm doing describe course, basically what does describe keyword do? It will tell you the table structure, right? The properties of your columns, right? Since it is a primary key, right? You have to take it into consideration. Whether it can be null, no. Whether it can be null, now this is not a primary key. These two are not a primary, so they can be null. But since your ID is a primary key, this cannot be null. So what if I add something? So insert into course values. Let's say course name student, right? Values. What will I enter? Bio, right? Student Aman. Wait a second. Integer value. Okay, course. Sorry, student is basically this integral value, right? Now you have said now field id, right? Field id, because it is a primary key, it doesn't have a default value, right? So what if I specify null as a default value, right? I will just remove these columns and I will say that hey, please enter null. Right. Now, if you enter null, you will be thrown an error that column ID cannot be null. Why it cannot be null? Because it has a primary key. Right. Now, what if I accidentally add a new student with a same primary key as the existing students, right? Or I add a new course number with the same primary key or course ID as the existing course number. So it is 101, right? When I add 101, you can see duplicate entry 101 for key course dot primary. It is telling us that we have a duplicate entry for our already existing entry made into a course table. Therefore, we need to specify a new primary key, that is 102. Just wait. Oh, okay. I cannot add this. Wait a second. Oh, okay. I have added a foreign key constraint over here. Okay, that is why we cannot add this. Just let me select star from student. Okay, okay, got it. Eight. Now, hey, you can see since I was like I had predefined a foreign key constraint over here, right? So it was not allowing me to specify any new course without having a linking with this student table. Why? Because I have only 9 students with the primary key from 1 to 9, right? So therefore this was also throwing a foreign key constraint, right? So what is a foreign key constraint, right? Let's talk about foreign keys now. Yes. Any issue? Okay. Foreign key constraint, right? Or a foreign key is a key which is used to link two tables together, right? As you know, a foreign key, right, is used to link two tables together. When you are, let's say you are making a payment table, right? Let's make a payment table, right? Now, payment table will have obviously a primary key which is payment ID, right? Payment ID. Then is we have payment status or payment mode, let's say payment mode and payment status. We have these columns exclusive to our payment table, but we have a foreign key over here. How will I know who made the payment, right? I would have, or which for which order I paid the payment. We will have a customer ID, right? We will have an order ID for which order the payment has been made, for which order, for by which customer, right? So basically we have the customer ID. Now I would have a customer table also, right? Customer table also. When I have a customer table, obviously I will be having a customer ID over here. Now you can see that obviously we will have some other properties, right? Customer name and something, 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 right? So you can see over here the foreign key in payment table, right? The foreign key was customer ID, which was a foreign key in payment table. This customer ID was a primary key of another table, right? This customer ID was a primary key of another table, right? So the table with the foreign key is called as child table, right? Now this was having a foreign key. This was a child table, right? This was a child table. The one with the primary is called the reference or the payment table. This table is known as the parent table, right? That is why we were not able to insert a new record in that course, right? In that course thing. Why? Because I was making a new child, right? Irrespective of the parent, right? Because I was not having any entry into the parent for that same child, right? That is why it threw an foreign key constraint, right? So we just witnessed a foreign key constraint also over here, right? How do we add a foreign key? We just execute the alter table command, right? Is that clear up to this? Are we clear, guys? Okay. Not null, right? So this is a very important constraint, right? So whenever you go to your corporate world, whenever you join the industry, this constraint will be widely used for some important columns. Let's say you are saying I want to create a transaction table, right? Let's create a table transaction, right? Create table transaction one, right? Transaction one, right? Now in that transaction one, what will be happening is, I hope my screen is visible. Okay. So what will be happening in this, in transaction table, I will have an ID, right? Let's just not go over there. Let me just explain over here because it is really time consuming over there. Okay. In transaction table, you are saying that I will be having an ID which will be of type integer, right? And it can be null. Or you are not specifying anything, default it will be null, right? Now when you're specifying it, what will happen? And there will be an amount. Let's say it is not null, or it is a primary key, that is, it should not be null. And amount, you are not specifying anything, you are just saying it to be integer, right? You are saying it to be integer. Now what will happen if you are making a new transaction, right? If you're making a new transaction with some ID but it doesn't contain the amount, will that transaction be valid into your real world scenario? No, because transaction always have some amount, whether it can be a point amount or point 0.5, point 0.1, whatsoever amount it has in decimal places or whatsoever in whole number, right? It will always be having an amount, right? If we are not including an amount in a transaction table, then what is the point of having it, right? So when you are giving a transaction table, let's say you have a primary key. Now you say that if in transaction table my amount should be not null, right? Your amount has to be a not null object, right? You need a transaction with a valid amount. Other than that, we are making a redundant entries with the just null amount in the transaction table. That is not advisable at all, right? So what does not null constraint helps us to do? It helps us that a column cannot have a null value, right? It also helps us to enforce some constraints to some critical columns, right, which can hamper our existing business operations, right? If the column is null, let's say, it can, if the amount is null, right, if the transaction amount can be null, it might happen that your customers balanced or the money, right, balance money or the any data, right, can be corrupted because of that null amount, right? Your APIs can throw a null pointer exception when you are getting or you're debiting some amount because of that transaction ID, because it is having an amount as null. So we specify the not null constraint on those particular columns which we sure shot know that this should not be null at all, right? That is why we create not null constraint, right? Now we have DDLs in SQLs. Simultaneously, we have some DMLs in SQL. Right. Now DDL, what are DDL? We have data definition language. Right. When we talk about data definition language, it is a primary function to create, modify, or delete the database, but not the data. Right. We are in DDLs, we deal with the data in the we deal with the structure of the database, but not the data itself, right? What does DDL contain? DDL contains following group of commands such as create, right? Why create is used? It is used to create a new table. Drop table, it drops the structure of the table or existing database, right? It drops the whole entity, right? We are not seeing the data, we are just dropping the whole entity. Alter table, it is used to manipulate the entity's properties, right, or the table properties. If you want to add a column, delete a column, right, remove a column, modify a column, we use the alter command. Rename is basically renaming your object or renaming your table, right? DMLs, what are DMLs? These are data manipulation languages, right? Now what does DML trigger? DML basically are considered to manipulate the data in the database, not the structure. DDLs deal with the structure, DML deals with the data of the database, right? Basically, how do we insert a new data? We insert a new data using insert command or insert into command, right? How do we select the data? We select the data using select keywords. We retrieve the data using select keyword, right? If we want to select every column, we use a wildcard characters, that is X If we want to select some limited number of columns, we use the column names with the select statement, right? Similarly, update, right? Update command is used to modify our existing rows in a database, right? Existing rows in a database. Similarly, delete command is also used to delete the existing rows from the database, right? So do you understand what is DML, DDL? Like the persons who might not feel some comfortable, like I know most of you guys already know about this, but these terms are important, right? DMLs, DDLs, we know, we should know the basics. Is this clear up to this? DMLs, DDLs, right? Okay, great. Now this is a SQL hands-on assignment. I will leave it up to you, right? If you have the time, I hope you have the time, right? We will have a hands-on how to create a database, right? Let's have a hands-on right now. Just wait a minute. Let me clear this. MySQL, enter password. Okay, create database. I will not create school, obviously. I have already the school database created, right? I will just create it for you, right? How we create a database? We just use the create database command, create database demo, right? If I want to see the databases, we will show database, right? So there is a demo. What if I want to remove the database? I want to use the drop database demo, right? If I use show databases, now my drop database, like my demo database is not there, right? So these are the basic create, drop command, which are the DDLs, right? Data definition, right? If I want to create a table, I will just simply use the create table command. If I want to add a column, I will use the alter command, that is alter table student add column total marks, which will be of type integer, right? So this is how, like, this is a basic hands-on for the folks who like don't have much practice for this, right? Just give me a minute, let me share these slides with you.